Hello, Guess here. This is a video I almost didn't make. In fact, it took so long for me to make this that I'm now closer to 700 hours than 500 hours. The reason it took me so long to organize my thoughts is because I almost quit the game at the 500 hour mark. But before I can tell you what changed and why I decided to come back to the game, I need to explain what led me to almost quitting. The first time I played this game was a long time ago. Sometime in 2018 when it was the free monthly game on PlayStation. I think me and my friends downloaded it because it was free, loaded into a custom game, got confused by the mechanics or annoyed at the gameplay, and promptly uninstalled the game. After that brief interaction, I completely forgot the game existed until, in 2024, we decided to try it again. This time, I fell in love instantly. We played a few rounds, and then my friends moved on to playing something else, but I didn't. I kept playing, night after night, slowly becoming obsessed. I honestly don't know why it had such an impact on me after so much time away. Maybe the quality of life changes and graphical overhaul made the game more accessible. Maybe all the new killers and survivors made me excited for more varied gameplay. Or maybe I'm just a different person than I was. In 2018, my favorite games were Apex Legends, Rainbow Six Siege, and Fallout 4. Now, I play Minecraft, Ultimate Chicken Horse, and of course, Dead by Daylight. During the pandemic, I played Among Us, so maybe I like asymmetrical multiplayer more than I used to? I really don't know. I do know the reason I stopped playing Apex and Siege. While I still enjoy FPS games, I find the core gameplay loop very boring. They can be fun for a few hours, but there are only so many times I can play the same maps with the same loadout before I want something new. I also got tired of how competitive those games were. Players who grind FPS games have a noticeable advantage, and every time a new character gets added or a balance change goes live, the meta in competitive FPS games completely changes. Now, I know Dead by Daylight can be a competitive experience, but I can choose to engage with it casually. Also, while the meta changes frequently in DBD, the core strategies don't. Ever since the game was released, survivors could focus on generators or try and loop the killer for 5 gens. New characters might add new strategies, but the old strategies don't go away. While the perks that are strongest may change and maps or items will be buffed or nerfed as needed, the gameplay doesn't really change much. Repairing gens and hitting skill checks, or chaining pallets and windows to prolong a chase, will always be core skills in DBD. Some might say that's boring, but to me, and this might be a hot take, I find the core gameplay of DBD relaxing. Like the actual moment-to-moment gameplay calms me down. If I don't want to sweat that hard, I can just gen jockey to try and avoid the killer, or if I feel like trying, I can loop the killer and try to waste their time. Every time I log into the game, I can tailor the experience with perks to help whatever playstyle I'm in the mood for, and frankly, there are more reasons to log in daily and try different builds in DBD than every FPS I've ever played. When I first started playing DBD, I was lucky enough to be able to play 2v8 as my first limited time mode. This was probably the best thing that could have happened to me, because it removed every hurdle in learning how to play the game. With 7 other survivors in a lobby, me blowing up a gen in the corner of the map isn't a big deal. The pressure to perform was replaced with teammates who were more than capable of carrying me the entire game. This did mean when I was forced to play 1v4, I knew nothing about perk synergies and I struggled to learn the unique perk interactions. It's pretty common knowledge at this point that DBD needs an in-game tutorial that actually teaches players how to do more than miss skill checks and step in traps. It's gotten to the point that Behavior has started asking its biggest content creators to make tutorials designed for newer players. While it was a tough learning curve, I really enjoyed my first few hundred hours in the game. I was able to play a variety of cool game modes, unlock a bunch of characters, and experiment with perks to figure out my playstyle. It was somewhere around the 200 hour mark where I decided I wanted to make DBD YouTube videos. Now to clarify, I know that my gameplay from back then is pretty bad. Even at the time of writing this, I'm a pretty inconsistent player. Sometimes I can loop the killer for 3 gens with no issue, other times I go down almost instantly. The reason I wanted to make videos about this game wasn't about cool clips, but rather the core idea of DBD. I've never played a game quite like this, and I think the devs deserve a lot of credit for creating a unique gaming experience. I've never played a game that simultaneously requires so much strategy and mechanical skill. As a survivor, I need to know the layout of the map, understand the killer's power, know where my teammates are and how good they are in chase, have perks that complement my particular playstyle, have quick reactions for skill checks, and keep looking over my shoulder to make sure the killer doesn't sneak up on me. The amount of focus needed to play well is insane. Even though I prefer Survivor, I acknowledge the killer mental game is even harder. Killers need to instantly determine the strength of any given 3-gen or pallet loop to determine where they should focus their energy, while constantly keeping a mental map of where they think every survivor is and where all those survivors are likely to go next, all the while trying to outplay their opponent in chase. All of this on top of remembering all the survivor perks to try and figure out what builds their opponents are running. DBD is one of the most unique gaming experiences of my life, and the more time I spend playing, the more fun I have. Now, to tell you the story of how I almost quit the game. The first thing that happened was this game against Springtrap. Personally, I think I played this game perfectly. In the time since I recorded this game, I cooled off a lot, and I stand by every decision I made. Here's the problem though. After this game, I submitted a bug report because I couldn't use Deliverance to unhook myself. Now, before I start complaining, a huge shout out to Brian from the DBD support staff. He responded to my bug report quickly and explained what was happening calmly. I was quite emotional at the time and he handled things with grace, so thank you, Brian. Now, time to complain. Why does the perk description for Deliverance not include the very important detail that the perk deactivates when you are the last survivor remaining? It took me 500 hours to see Deli working as intended, which to me means there's a problem. If it takes a player 500 hours to experience the perk as intended, there's a problem with the perk. I shouldn't have to go on the DBD wiki to figure out how my perks are supposed to work. This isn't the only instance where a perk has a feature or statistic that isn't listed in the perk description, but this is the only time it's screwed me in a match. The purpose of Deliverance is to unhook yourself to allow teammates to pressure gens. Using Deli instantly on hook almost always gets you killed. If the killer can turn around and just hook you again, you went second stage for nothing. For Deliverance to get any value at all, here's what needs to happen. First, you need to safely unhook a teammate. You can't unhook a teammate immediately or in the killer's face without potentially getting your teammate killed. You also can't take first chase or pressure high priority gens in the early game. Second, if used too early in a match, Deli is basically useless. The concept of this perk is only strong if your teammates are all working on generators and you're approaching the endgame. If you're approaching the endgame, it's more important for killers to pressure gens than hooks, but in the early game, you're an easy target while broken. Third, all of this assumes your teammates are pressuring different gens and they want to leave you on hook for a bit, which almost never happens. The likely scenario is as soon as you get hooked, one of your teammates will run in for the unhook, and at that point, you may as well let them. In coordinated teams, there are more opportunities to use Deli well, but the downside of 60 seconds of broken means you're normally better off letting a teammate come for the save. Okay, so you have to play a bit stealthy in the early game. You can't get hooked until basically the end game, and then the final nail in the coffin, Deliverance is deactivated if your teammates escape. So the best time to use Deli is right around when the last gen is completed, presuming you safely unhooked a teammate and your team doesn't leave immediately. Oh, and even if used correctly, you're broken for 60 seconds, so the killer can turn around and hook you again. That's too many downsides and prerequisites. In my opinion, Deliverance would be more balanced if it granted a free unhook with no prerequisites, but left you broken for the rest of the match, or vice versa. Add another prerequisite like healing a teammate and remove the broken effect. I don't think this is a crazy suggestion considering some of the other perks in the game. Take the perk Wicked for comparison. Wicked has no prerequisites, grants a free unhook in basement with no downside, and every time you are unhooked by any means, you can see the killer's aura for 20 seconds. 20 fucking seconds! That's better than every other aura perk in the entire game, and it's a bonus effect for a second chance perk? What the fuck? Why are some perks like 6 perks rolled into one with effects that can activate in each game, while others have a barely useful effect that can only be used every few matches? Cough, cough, fucking Deliverance. Fundamentally, Wicked and Deliverance can be used interchangeably, but Wicked can be used even if you're the first person on hook, and even if you can't use Wicked to unhook yourself, it still provides 20 seconds of killer aura. Every goddamn game. Also, with all of the controversies recently and the killer nerfs, I've heard a lot of players discussing what they think needs to change to balance the game, and multiple times I have heard people argue that Deliverance needs to be removed. Fucking Deliverance? I wonder if those people have ever actually tried to use the perk and experience the Deli Curse firsthand. Run it 10 games in a row and see how many times it provides any value. To my knowledge, the meta has never included Deliverance, because, it requires you to get hooked. Fucking Resilience is a better perk, because it actually helps you avoid being hooked. Exhaustion perks, flashlights, and sabo builds are way more annoying to deal with on killer, as they can actually prevent you from hooking someone. Fuck it! Boil Over is more annoying as killer than Deliverance. Okay. I'm calm. When I was messaging with Brian, I said I was never going to run Deliverance again. That's a bit too strong of a reaction. But I won't ever run it in solo queue again. With friends, I can almost guarantee I'm not the first hook, and I can unhook a teammate. Plus, I can ask friends to open an exit gate and wait for me to use the perk before leaving. All of the downsides of Deli are lessened by playing in a Swift. In solo queue, literally every exhaustion perk is better than Deli. Or if you really don't want to be hooked, run Decisive Strike. Avoiding a hook is better than being able to unhook yourself, so run perks to help you avoid being hooked. Easy. It took me 500 hours to figure that out, and frankly, ever since I've had better games. Running Sprint Burst and Vigil is useful in way more scenarios than Deliverance and Dead Hard. This mentality shift of what perks are useful every game has led to more varied builds and overall more success. Sometimes I'll bring one silly perk, but my other 3 perks will be useful every game. This mental shift of how I play wasn't easy though, and this really brings me to why I almost quit the game. At this point, it's important to mention that I had barely spent any money on the game. Again, I got it for free in 2018, and at this point, I had only bought Ghostface because I like the Scream movies. My investment in DBD was only $5, so I was pretty comfortable with leaving. After that game against Springtrap, I went through and removed Deliverance from most of my characters, and replaced it with more useful perks. But I also wanted to play with perks I'd never used before to find out which ones were even worth running. This is the moment I got really sad. When I went through and compared all of the perks I'd unlocked to the ones I actually liked using, I found that most were garbage. Genuinely, go through and compare the value of each perk in the game against something like Sprint Burst, and few can compare. This is also from the solo queue perspective, so any perk that required teamwork was useless too. I also started paying attention to what builds streamers were using when they were playing to win. Most of the time, the build contains one of 3 exhaustion perks, Dramaturgy, Sprint Burst, or Lithe. Some of the times it also includes Vigil and or Fixated to buff those exhaustion perks further, and provide passive benefits against roughly half the killers in the game. The other most common perks I see to round out that build are Finesse, Resilience, Windows of Opportunity, Deja Vu, and sometimes Bond. That's it. Run those perks, you will perform better. There are more than 150 survivor perks in DBD, and most people run some combination of the 10 strongest perks in the game. The more games I played after realizing this, I felt more and more frustrated every time killers ran the same 4-gen slowdown perks, and my teammates ran the exact same build as me. Winning or losing didn't feel as interesting because it was largely a math equation. How many survivors were running Sprint Burst versus how many gen slowdown perks the killer had? Whichever had a higher number had an advantage, not taking into consideration the S-tier killers or extremely unbalanced maps. I was getting bored. I was getting frustrated, and frankly, all of the complaining from the community about the FNAF chapter was making me feel worse. The joy I felt using perks like Deliverance in my first few hundred hours was completely overshadowed by how broken the game felt. I was completely ready to throw in the towel. And then the anniversary event came around. Don't get me wrong, The actual Masquerade game mode was even more unbalanced and annoying, and I'm happy it's gone. But suddenly everything was on sale. I decided if there was one survivor I really wanted to try, one potential saving grace, it was Nicolas Cage. And I was right. Cage's perks are all amazing, his voice lines are ridiculous, and suddenly, my perspective completely changed. Instead of being upset that I couldn't win against certain killers, or being mad when my teammates DC'd before the first gen popped, now I went into games with the express intent of getting value out of Plot Twist, and it was so much fun. I rode this high right to my next purchase, Bardic Inspiration, and now I had a build that made me smile every single game. Bond, Plot Twist, Dramaturgy, and Bardic Inspiration. Seriously, run this build. It's so much fun. Bardic is actually a decent perk for gen rushing with a teammate. Plot Twist gives you at least one potential heal even without a medkit, and Dramaturgy is one of the better exhaustion perks in the game, and a great way to farm for items. The beauty of this build is I can actually try to win and help my team, but I can also hold concerts for my teammates, or try and tame the killer with Bardic, or use Plot Twist in the killer's face to try and make them miss attacks or fall down holes. The combo of Dramaturgy and Bond is good enough I could probably win games with just those two, but the overall chaotic nature of the build creates much more joy in your average game of DBD. Even against S-tier killers with good perks, getting one good Dramaturgy or Plot Twist play is enough to make me happy, and sometimes they even wait to kill me until after my concert. One of the things that made it hard for me to make this video is I wasn't really sure what I wanted to say. I knew I wanted to talk about my experience with DBD so far, and why I'm choosing to stick around despite the toxic players, buggy game, aloof developers, and huge investment of time and money to actually unlock everything. The simple answer? The game is fun. There isn't a clear reason to play Overwatch instead of Marvel Rivals or Valorant instead of CS2, and those players tend to bounce around a lot. However, there is a reason to play DBD instead of other horror games like Resident Evil or Five Nights at Freddy's or other asymmetrical games like Among Us. DBD is fun. It's silly. It's weird. Nowhere else can Nicolas Cage play the guitar for Michael Myers while Lara Croft, Trevor Belmont, and Rick Grimes are his backup dancers on the stage at Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. That is an experience only players of this game can relate to. And if it takes putting up with toxicity and game-breaking bugs to have a match like that, then that's what I'll do. As a final note, before I wrap up this video, I'd like to say my piece on what I think the devs need to do to fix DBD. Make more fun perks. There should be a valid reason to run every single perk in the game, even in solo queue. And the easiest way to do that is adding more silly and interesting perks into the game. We need fewer perks that change 1% value of healing speed, and more perks that let survivors interact with the killer or the map in new ways. Based on recent perks like Conviction and 1, 2, 3, 4, it seems like the devs understand this. Honestly, I can't wait to see all my games full of survivors just playing music. That's going to be hilarious. Get rid of the stuff that's boring, add new things that are fun, and maybe, just maybe, this game will survive another decade. Thank you for watching this video. I know it's not the normal content you'd expect from this channel. If you made it this far, let me know your favorite perk in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. It really helps me out. Thanks again, and I'll see you all in the fog.